We are up and live. Well, good afternoon, everybody on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're going to talk a little bit about self-care with Jennifer Hicks, but before we get started, I got my phone here. I'm trying to bring up LinkedIn so that I can watch this on LinkedIn as well. I've been having some trouble seeing who's watching on LinkedIn and reading those comments. So if you happen to be on LinkedIn or even on YouTube, give us a like and tell us where you're watching from. And I'd also love to know what your favorite color is. So if you happen to be watching, throw out your favorite color into the comments. And there we go. So I got that set up now. Got a few likes. Here we go. All right. Well, I'm super excited about this. And so a little bit of a story here about how all these interviews got started. So earlier in the week, I had some free time this week and I said, I'm going to ask people to be in interviews. And almost everyone I asked said, sure, we'll do a live interview. And I even had some other people that said, hey, I got a topic. It fits what you're talking about. Let's talk about it. And so Jennifer was one of those people who wanted to talk about self-care. And I said, this is a great topic. And right now it's really important. And Absolutely. Full disclosure for everybody on the phone call, Jennifer is actually married to, I am married to Emily, and Jennifer is my wife's sister. So my wonderful wife makes Jennifer my sister-in-law. So I actually know Jennifer more than just a little bit on the internet. But I put on LinkedIn that I think we could have some family drama show up in the show today. And it's reality TV. I don't know if that's going to happen. But anyhow,
we're going to see how long you can call me Jennifer instead of Jenny.
Jennifer. At my house, so I have some kids at my house. She goes by Auntie Jenny. And so if that slips out, it's Auntie Jenny here on TV. But anyhow, I'm going to throw it over her to introduce herself and tell everybody a little bit about who she is and what she does. So take it away, Jennifer.
Thank you, Ryan. And I'm going to see how long I can call Ryan and not Goof, which is how I've known him for longer than 20 years now. I was trying to do the math earlier.
That is true.
I will say that Auntie Jenny is one of my favorite credentials. And so feel free to call me that. I'm also Jennifer Hicks. I'm the owner of Joyful Noises, LLC, where my mission is to utilize music therapy and mindfulness principles to inspire and empower others to experience and create joy in their lives. And I am both a board-certified music therapist as well as an experienced registered yoga teacher. So those are the official credentials you'll see with my name, and have spent the last couple of decades really integrating both who I am as a music therapist, as a humanistic, client-centered music therapist, with my understanding and experiences with mindfulness principles, and really integrating those to help the clients that I work with, as well as to help myself and the people around me to really create joy in our lives. And I also, as a part of that, work a lot with students and have a national roster internship site working with music therapy interns. I am co-chair for the American Music Therapy Association's Commission on the Education and Clinical Training of 21st Century Music Therapists, as well as our National Membership Committee, and was the local co-chair for our recent national conference here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I am today. So hello all from there. And often present at the regional and national level on a variety of topics, including self-care. This is one of my favorite topics to explore. And in a little while, I'll tell you more about why.
Well, see, there we go. This is why the show, I bring in people that do interesting things and get really excited about topics. So that's what we're there. Anyhow, I want to make some shout outs. We got some comments coming in. So Mop's mom from South Dakota, like yellow. And we got blue and periwinkle are a couple of other favorite colors. I will fully admit, I don't know what periwinkle color is.
So it's close to the color of my shirt, actually. This is fairly periwinkle. Yeah.
Okay. And then Your husband is watching. He likes red.
On Wisconsin. Go Badgers.
I'm a fan of red as well, and I think he's also a fan of the LinkedIn reality TV show, but I don't think we're going to go with that. But anyhow, so
you never know. Having him on too.
Yeah. So before we go too far, Jennifer briefly mentioned my nickname is Goof. It goes all the way back to 5th grade, but many of the people that physically know me, like personally in my real life, and I actually talk to them, refer to me as Goof. So a little bit of information there. But before we get into self-care, there are 5 questions I've been running everybody through in my interview to learn just a little bit more and help the viewers know a little bit more about what you do and who you are. So I'm going to jump right into those. First one. Hold on. I'm going to bring up there we go. It pulls across front. How many cups of coffee do you drink every week?
None.
None.
That's an easy one. I don't drink coffee. You could ask your 4-year-old and she would let you know that Auntie Jenny drinks peppermint tea. So I'm either drinking that or water pretty much all the time. And in honor of this interview, not only have the Starbucks cup, but also the Seahawks big canister of water here. So I have my 2 favorite drinks ready to go.
Fantastic. Well, in my earlier interview today, I talked to Buck Woody, and he said by 9 o'clock he had already had 9 cups of coffee.
Ooh.
So I think he was my coffee drinking winner.
I think so. I think most of the people who know me are glad I don't drink coffee. I can't imagine myself more caffeinated.
And that's good. All right, we're going to go on to the next one. What's your favorite restaurant?
Oh, shout out here to Butter Bakery and Cafe in Minneapolis. I've written most of my master's thesis there. And they have the most phenomenal chocolate peanut butter bars. And then also Nighthawks is our other favorite place to go. And they have amazing buffalo Brussels sprouts. And both those places are doing carry out and I believe delivery right now. So shout out to my friends in Minneapolis on the corner of 38th, 37th and Nicollet there.
Hey, this has become one of my favorite questions to ask people because almost everybody has like a local favorite that they really like. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think if someone asked me, I'd probably tell them Chick-fil-A, and we don't even have one in South Dakota. And that seems kind of boring compared to everybody else's answer.
Butter actually made it into my acknowledgments on my thesis. So that's how much I love them.
Well, that's good. So anyhow, everybody, if you happen to be watching, we've had some people join in here. Let us know where you're watching from and what your favorite color is. We're talking to Jennifer Hicks about self-care. And right now we're running through our 5 questions to get to know her better. And the next one on the list. I do know you're a reader, but do you prefer ebooks, paperback books, or the last one doesn't apply because I know you like to read books?
I love to read. I prefer paperbacks if I can. I do sometimes do the ebooks just because we like to travel too when we can, and those are a little easier to throw into the suitcase. Right now, I actually have both my old paper copy of Les Mis that I'm reading alongside your 16-year-old daughter, because it's one of my favorite novels of all time that one of my high school teachers gave me. And I do actually have the ebook version of this as well, because it has the introduction that your daughter's reading. So I'm simultaneously reading the ebook and the paperback version of that one.
Well, that's good. I did know my daughter was reading that book. She was trying to talk about it the other night, and I've never read it. So I was no help. So I'll just refer her to you on that one.
That's what Auntie Jenny's for.
All right. And next question. When you were growing up, what career did you want to have?
Originally, well, and my parents might know farther back than I do. Originally, from what I can remember, is I wanted to be a ballerina. That was first and foremost. When that dream was not going to happen, then my plan was actually to become a psychologist. And I had the opportunity to meet a music therapist when I was in high school and learn that this was actually a career where I could combine my love of music with my interest in psychology. And so that's what led me to what I'm doing now.
Well, that's kind of good. See, here's things. Since I've known you for 20 years, I didn't know these things about you. We should have dug up some old ballerina pictures, Jennifer, to share on.
Oh,
I
they
could have brought you
exist.
some old football pictures of myself when I dreamed of being a professional football player.
Mhm.
All right. And the last quick get to know you question. What is something you are afraid of?
Oh, falling. I don't do
Falling?
diving boards. Yeah, Storm Mountain. We should have brought pictures of that. I was scared the whole time that myself or somebody was going to fall off that mountain. I like heights. I'm okay with heights as long as I feel like I have a really solid foundation. But that sensation of falling is not my favorite. Even like elevators and airplanes.
Well, that's a new one. I think you're like the sixth person I've interviewed, and I think everyone's given me a different answer for that one. I thought everyone was going to throw out spiders or snakes.
Nah,
But
I lived in Arizona for a while, so I'm really good at relocating spiders. I'm not a huge fan of snakes, but
fantastic. Hey, my daughter's now watching as well, and her favorite color is purple. So I'm throwing those out. If you happen to just be joining and you're watching, leave a comment and tell us what your favorite color is, because we're trying to talk about. Mine's red. I guess I didn't ask Jennifer. What's your favorite color?
I have two that are very, very close together. My personal favorite color is purple, lavender-ish, and then all of my business logos and everything are in shades of blue, and I really do love blue too. So kind of the blues and lavenders, and so periwinkle falls right into that.
All right,
It's going to be your
periwinkle.
new favorite color.
Color I'm not super familiar with.
It's also, by the way, the color that our other sister, not your wife, had for their color at their wedding, and their anniversary is today. So that's fitting.
Wow, fantastic. There's some trivia for us. All right. So now that we're done with that, let's jump into what we're going to talk about in this year. And coronavirus has hit, and it's hit hard for a lot of people. And the topic of self-care is an important one. So I kind of want to throw it over to you. Why is self-care so important right now?
And I would back up a step and just say that self-care is important always. It is even more critical now. And as I was thinking about this and why I present on this so often, I was realizing that I don't even know if you know my full story with self-care, Ryan, just because it started before I knew you. And so back when I was a senior in college, I had a TIA. I had some bleeding in my brain. And that resolved for the most part. But then about 13 years ago, I once again had some bleeding in my brain, and I was having a lot of health problems and was on a heart monitor and was having fainting spells and was just really, really physically unhealthy. And my neurologist told me that I needed to redesign my life, that a lot of it was just due to chronic stress. And working long, long hours and in a very high stress situation. And particularly for me, working in a way that wasn't consistent with who I am, with my core values and what I believe. And so that was really a wake-up call for me and for my husband and myself. And we sat down and really laid out what are our core values, how do we want to live, what is most important to us, putting health right up there. And that was really the first point for me when I realized that self-care is not just something that's fun or nice or that we practice on the weekend or on summer vacation, but really needs to be a critical, vital, routine part of our lives. And we need to be better at integrating that always for all of us, for our health, both our physical health as well as our mental health. And that is even more vital now, not just for us, but also for those of us that live with other people, for our relationships with the people that we live with. And the philosophy that I use is based on this quote that you can't pour from an empty cup. And, I've shown you already, I have 2 different drinks with me just to stay hydrated for this next half hour. When we think about how we hydrate, it's not something that we just do once a week or once a month or once a year. We can't expect to be healthy if we only hydrate those limited times. And so we can't just fill our cup up once a week or once a month or once a year. We have to constantly be refilling our cups so that we can continue to give and continue to be healthy. And that's really where my philosophy started. And so these small sips of self-care are really important. And especially during this time with a lot of uncertainty, routine becomes even more important for many of us. Having some sense of control and some sense of routine in the midst of the uncertainty and the fear is really vital. And so building in within that routine, these small sips of self-care that make sense for us and for our lives, for the people that we live with in our own unique situations is incredibly important. Oftentimes, as I've mentioned, I love to travel when we can travel, and that saying that you need to put your own oxygen mask on first is true. We need to be practicing things ourselves, putting on our oxygen mask, taking care of us in these really vital, critical ways so that we can help other people. And more importantly than helping other people, I think is really modeling for other people how they can learn to take care of themselves and help themselves too, especially during this time.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the routine thing, because even this morning I was talking with someone else about working from home, and he said one of the big things is that routine. And right now I feel like the coronavirus has taken everyone's routine that they used to have and thrown it out the window.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
a lot of us are just trying to figure out how do we deal in this new world. And I liked your little comment about little sips here and there, and we're going to probably get into that more later on. The next one that I'm kind of curious about, and I'm sure lots of other people are interested and curious about this. What are all the elements of self-care? Like you kind of mentioned a few of them. It's not just exercise more. There's a lot more to it. So let's dive into some of that.
We're going to dive into that. And I will just give a shout out first before I dive into the ones that I'm going to look at today. We just have a short time period together today, so we're not really diving deep. There's a lot of resources out there about all of these, as well as more. One of my favorite resources and speakers is Olga Phoenix. And her website, which is olgaphoenix.com, has information, including a self-care wheel and resiliency wheel that I think are just really beautiful visual representations of many, many different components of self-care and many, many different points and elements of resiliency that are important for us. And so those would be some resources that if you want to look more into some of these elements, that I would highly suggest that you check out her resources. So again, that's Olga, O-L-G-A, Phoenix, Phoenix.com. And she has a free starter kit and free access to those PDFs on her website. I've chosen today to focus on 4 of these different elements that I have found to be really helpful, that in presenting about this for the last long period of time with people all over the world, that seem to resonate the most for people. And so I'm going to come back here and pull up this slideshow again for y'all.
All right, let me share some of your slides. Hey, there they are.
There we go. And we'll pull that up. And so we're going to start with the physical practices. And what we know is that the first 2 that I'm going to address, these first 2 elements, the physical practices and the mindfulness practices, are really the 2 most important that are directly related to how we perceive stress. And that's an important point because especially in a time like this, we can't change a lot of the stressors that we're dealing with. They just are. What we can change is how we perceive and respond to those stressors. And the physical practices and the mindfulness practices that we're going to look at are 2 of the main ways that we can really change how we perceive stress in our lives. Starting with the physical, and those of you who are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to address the physical first. And we are, in a lot of ways right now. We're practicing physical distancing. You mentioned, Ryan, that you had someone on this morning talking about working from home. And I heard a wonderful quote on Twitter, actually, that said, we're not working from home. For many of us that don't usually work at home, some of you might be, but for most of us, we're not working from home. We're at home during a crisis, trying to work and trying to live and trying to manage our lives. And so these physical pieces are really important because if we don't address these, we can't address anything else. The other piece in that, as we focus on this kind of baseline physical need we have, is to let go of some of that need to be productive all the time, to understand that right now in the middle of a crisis, we need to start from our foundation, start from the physical practices. And I've listed just a few that are important and that you can integrate. The first that I added is breath work. And wherever you're at right now, if you want to pause and just take a nice deep inhale through your nose, if that's possible for you. And then sigh it out. We know that taking 6 deep breaths will actually significantly lower our blood pressure and our pulse rate. And so this is a huge one that we can all incorporate, whether those are, really focusing on the deep inhales, the long exhales, the sighing out. If you have young children, pretending that you have a cup of hot cocoa, taking a deep inhale, and then blowing on that hot cocoa. And you can do that with a flower or a candle or any other imagery that's helpful. We know that those deep breaths are really important for us at every age and can actually statistically significantly help to lower some of those physical responses that we have to uncertainty and anxiety in our lives. Sleep is huge. There's a lot of documented studies on the importance of sleep. You mentioned that my husband's watching today. He can tell you all about this one. This is a favorite for him to talk about. And particularly during this time when many of our routines have been interrupted, creating a routine still in our sleep patterns and our day patterns is important. And so I'm still going to bed and waking up at approximately the same times as I did when I was working outside the home. The same is true for how we eat, making sure that we still have regular meals and healthy snacks and options for that we're still hydrating, that we're still getting enough water. Go Hawks. Had to throw that one in there. And then, of course, getting those endorphins from exercising, stretching, whatever fits into your life. When I've presented on this in the past, I'm someone who's had a lot of commuting to do. And so finding ways to incorporate stretching at stoplights has been important. Now we could do an entire session just on options for how to do some stretching from your desk. And that's huge if you're working from home. That's really important if you're not getting as much exercise as you normally do, to find ways to do that. I will also add, though, that sometimes for me, practicing self-care means doing the exercise. For me, means doing my yoga or my Pilates, getting out and walking. And then there are other times that self-care actually means not doing those things. And that's where this mindfulness piece comes in. And mindfulness is really just the practice of being grounded in and mindful of this present moment, without judgment, without attachment. I'm just noticing. And that self-awareness is really critical right now. I can tell you some of the ways that I'm responding to the changes with COVID-19. And I can also tell you some of the ways that my husband is responding, and he could probably tell you mine too. The most important part of that, though, is we're aware of this ourselves, and we're also able to communicate that. And so for those of you with children at home too, encouraging them to notice how they're responding to this, being aware of that, being able to communicate and talk about that without that judgment piece is important. Some other ways that we can practice mindfulness practices, meditation practices, prayer can fall in that category. Self-compassion is huge for whatever you're experiencing right now. And I'll often use the prompt of, what would you say to yourself if you were your best friend? Or in my case, if I was talking to my sisters, if they were feeling like I'm feeling in this moment, what would I say to them? We often tend to talk to ourselves. Our self-talk tends to be like we're our own worst critics, worst enemies, rather than really treating ourselves with compassion as we would a friend. Nature can be really important even right now. And so getting out to take a walk if you can, obviously following the physical distancing criteria, even little things like I have at my desk a little plant that I keep on here just so I have a little bit of green always when I'm working. Having some vitamin D, having some lights. If you're someone who works with some of those lights, we need nature and we need sunlight, and that is real and important. And you'd mentioned, Ryan, in your promos for this, talking about positivity. And I think it's really important to note that when we talk about positivity, we're not trying to pretend that it's not hard right now and it's not challenging. It's really important with this mindfulness piece of noticing that, of really being honest with ourselves and others about the tough stuff too. And I love the and still knowing that what we water grows. And so if we focus on the challenges, if we focus on the negatives, they will grow. If we, got together for a Zoom fest and we just all whined and complained and talked about the hard stuff, you can just feel how that would feel. We need to talk about that. Absolutely. We need to explore that. And we also need to focus on some of the positives. And we know that focusing on the positive can have some really very real researched responses in our bodies. Smiling can improve our recovery time from stress and even improve our immune system. The same is true for laughter. And one of the great things with laughter is that it doesn't have to be real for it to have positive effects on us. And so I have a colleague who's a laughter yoga teacher, and we'll practice laughing together. And one of the great things, first of all, is when you start laughing, other people start laughing with you, and it tends to be contagious. And then also, again, has these really very positive effects on our brain chemistry, on our immune system, on our body that are really important right now. And then finally on here is the gratitude piece. And again, gratitude has a lot of researched benefits, from improvement in our sleep and immune system, our energy level, our resiliency, which is incredibly important right now, as well as our compassion for ourselves, for others, our feelings of contentment, our ability to relax. And so gratitude is something that we can practice in a lot of different ways, from even just taking a moment to verbalize it, from keeping a gratitude journal where you write down a few things every day, sending thank you notes, sending thank you emails, whatever works for you, taking the time to focus on the gratitude. Again, acknowledging there's tough stuff happening, and where we focus our attention is really important. And then the last two that I wanted to mention that I find are really important, not only for myself and others, start with the sources of support. And so these can be personal things, family, friends, the hobbies that we do, our faith, if that's important to you. And then again, on the personal level, being self-aware of what type of support we need to give ourselves and what type of support that we need from others. And so I am an extrovert, fully admit, living with an introvert. And it's really important that we're aware of that, because what my husband needs to support himself is different than what I need to support myself. And so whereas he might need some time and space alone to write, I need to be with people. And we were talking earlier, and we can mention this a little later, about a Zoom call that I have every day. I need to get with my family. I need to be with friends and colleagues and really feel that support. I will add that right now, with all the Zoom calls that we're doing, there is a very important acknowledgement of some of the cognitive dissonance that creates, that feeling like we're together with people and not really being together with people is exhausting for us. And so even though I'm an extrovert, spending a lot of time on Zoom with people is actually still exhausting for me, because my brain is trying to translate that of feeling like I'm with people, but not really feeling like I'm with people. And so just be aware that if you're on Zoom calls a lot these days, or any other platform, and you're feeling exhausted afterwards, that's real in a lot of different ways. Professional sources of support. Obviously, there's lots of options here, from personal therapists and professional counselors. Many of us are offering telehealth options right now, to mentorship programs. I'm really grateful to be in our Great Lakes region of the American Music Therapy Association, and we have a free mentorship program that's available to our members. Coaching, supervision. I know I do a lot of supervision for students and professionals, and I'm grateful I'm part of a peer supervision group so that I can get some supervision myself. And lots of online options for this too, similar to what you offer, Ryan, and others do as well. And then I am a music therapist, so I had to put music on here. And so music, whether we're creating it or listening to it, we know is incredibly powerful for our brains and incredibly powerful for our bodies. We know that our bodies are built on rhythm. And so we respond to the music around us. Our blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing want to match the music around us. And so we can use that. And we can use that for our energy level. We can use that for our mood, to notice where they're at now. And the music therapists follow what we call the ISO principle. So noticing where we're at now and where we want to go with that. So if we're feeling pretty calm and we want to stay there, choosing music that helps us stay there. If we are tired and we need to get motivated, starting with music that's more relaxed and low key, and then upping the energy level can be really powerful and can help with that. The same is true with mood. It's important when we're sad to be sad. And so playing the music that allows you to experience that, whether you're creating the music yourself or listening to it, and then making sure we don't get stuck there. So maybe starting to up the hope level in the music that we listen to. So those are a few of our favorites. Those are a few that I found really powerful and helpful for the people that I've worked with over the years, and wanted to share with all y'all today too.
Well, that's good. I have to ask, we're coming up on our 30 minutes and I don't have to stop, but do you care?
I'm good.
All right. Well, we're going to keep going. So if you're watching, honestly, I think the topic is important. and there's lots of things to ask about this. I want to follow up on your 6 breaths thing.
Yeah.
6 deep breaths.
Yeah.
So is it, I guess this is probably my data science mind coming into here. Is it just because it takes you 30 seconds to do 6 breaths and that's like enough time to calm yourself down? Like, what is it about? Is it a 6 or is it just that's what they tried enough times? Why 6?
I would have to go back and find the exact study to tell you for sure why the number 6 hits. I've also seen studies that we need 10 a day to be healthy for our lungs as well as for the rest of ourselves. I do know that the piece with the deep breathing that's important is when we are taking these deep breaths. So breathing through our nose is one of the ways that we can do this, as well as those extended exhales, the longer exhales, will actually engage the parasympathetic nervous system. So what's happening as we take those 6 deep breaths is that we're actually engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps our body to relax. And I will say though, a lot of the work that I do is built around those of us who have experienced trauma in our lives. And one of the things that happens with trauma and is more people are experiencing right now with COVID-19 is some of those regular rhythms get off because of trauma. We end up living in this state of fight or flight. And it's harder to allow our bodies to engage that parasympathetic nervous system. That becomes more challenging. Some of this breath work and some of these meditation practices are one of the ways that we can actually help our bodies to start to find that again, particularly during these times of more trauma and stress.
Right. So that there is actually some physiological backing to what's going on there.
Yeah. And as I said, all of these areas, there's a ton. What I've done, and specifically over the last year, is collated a lot of the research and put it together. And so I have lists and lists and lists of research. If people are interested in specific areas that you want to dive deeper on, I'm always glad to share those references too.
Yeah. All right. So if you just happen to be joining us, a few people have joined us on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're talking with Jennifer Hicks about self-care and why it's important all the time, and especially right now during our COVID-19 quarantine. My next question in here is, what are some types of fun activities, and maybe they don't necessarily all even have to be fun. What are some activities people can be doing right now? Well, everything, there are good things for us that just don't happen to be fun, and we still do them. So I guess I maybe should have left the word fun out of there, but like, what are some activities that we can be doing right now that are going to help us feel better and maybe try to bring a little bit of normalcy back into our lives?
Absolutely. And I would say that there's those 2 pieces of this. So there is the piece with my philosophy on these small sips, right? To find the little things that you can do right now that fit into your life, in your schedule, that'll work for you. And so that's a whole piece. And again, it might not all be fun stuff. Having a regular sleep routine is not always fun, but it's kind of important.
Not always. No.
And so I would encourage you, though, to look for what's going to work in your life right now with your family, whatever that looks like. If that's you, if it's you and your dog, if it's you and your wife and 5 kids and the fish, whatever that means. And so some fun ones that we can add on top of that, when I think about the physical piece of it, is Debbie Allen right now on Instagram does a dance class at 3:00 every Wednesday. And the Rockettes do one on Fridays. And there's all these resources that are now open for free yoga and free this type of exercise and that type of exercise. And so depending on what's fun for you, try some of these out. We've been having a blast Zooming as we try and follow Debbie Allen's dance class together as a family.
I've witnessed some of that. Yes.
Yeah. This week we had my legs pictured on Zoom atop your daughter's body or below your daughter. Yeah.
I did see that as well. Go back on it. So Zoom split screens everything. And there was a screenshot someone in my family took. And on the bottom of the screen, it was the bottom half of Jenny's body. And the top half was my daughter. And it almost lined up perfectly. Like it looked as if it was one person.
those paper dolls we used to have. And so that's great on a variety of levels, right? Because that's hitting the physical piece. I'm getting the endorphins of exercising. And I actually do break a sweat when I do that. I'm getting the mindfulness piece of positivity and gratitude and just being present in the moment. I'm also getting the sources of support that we talked about in doing that, not only on my own, but also with my niece and with my parents and my sisters and whoever else pops on. I have a colleague of mine who I know also has been doing that. And so we tweet about it. And so it's hitting all of those different ways. Plus, she adds the music in. And so, right there in one thing, I have managed to hit all of those 4 different elements of self-care. And that's one that I've intentionally put into my calendar now. So when I'm planning my new routine in this era of COVID, I don't plan other things for 3:00 Central Time on Wednesdays. That is my dance class time. And I honor that because that's an important part of my new routine. We were also talking earlier, our family has daily Zoom calls that we do together. And those have looked really different on different days. And yet it's become a really important check-in. And one of the things that I've liked about those is we do create the space in those calls to talk about the tough stuff too, that this isn't always easy, to have the support that we need, to be able to share those together. And then just to be a part of each other's lives, to have some of that consistent support every day. And that doesn't have to be a Zoom call. That could be a text check-in with somebody, especially if you have people in your life that maybe don't have other people around them to check in on them right now. That can be really critical. And so I'd encourage you to just be mindful of that. If you're struggling, to not be afraid to reach out. You are not alone in that. There's a lot of people struggling right now. And so some of those fun things can also be really critical ways that we're being mindful of our self-care too.
Yeah, I've heard a number of people share the tip of just looking through your phone text messages and pick somebody that you haven't sent a message to in 3 months, 6 months, a year, and just send them a message and ask how they're doing and how life is, just to make a little bit of a connection, make somebody feel a little bit better. It helps you feel a little bit better. It builds a little bit of connection.
Absolutely.
So
one of my favorite ways to do is to add in that gratitude piece to that too then. And so when you're messaging them, specifically tell them one thing that you are grateful about for them. So, I am grateful for the way that, you and my sister have modeled building a family and a life together over the years in a way that is consistent with what works for your family. And I'm grateful for the way that you treat each of your kids like the unique, incredible people that they are. That's such a wonderful model of parenting. And there's all these specific things that when I look at you, I can say, oh, I'm grateful for this. And so when you're messaging people to say, I thought of you today. I'm really grateful that you do this and just wanted to check in and see how you are. Because again, then you're also sharing the benefits of gratitude with them. Most of us like to be told thank you. Most of us like to be told nice things about ourselves. Again, with that self-compassion, we don't often talk that way to ourselves. And so making the time to share some of those positive messages with each other and creating the space to just check in. How are you? How's it going? Absolutely. That's a great way to reach out.
That's a great tip there to add that gratitude piece. And honestly, it's one of those things I'm not real great at. And so that's good. Anyhow, getting some great tips on self-care with Jennifer Hicks today. I got a couple more questions here. Are there good resources and potentially even apps to help people deal with the 4 elements you're talking about, or anything in general? What's out there for this?
There are so many resources out there for this. It is actually almost overwhelming right now how many resources we have out there for this. And so I would just mention a couple. I'll go back and mention Olga Phoenix again, just as a reference for the self-care wheel and the resiliency wheel that she just came out with. I will mention, when I'm looking at resources, some of the options for health, that physical piece, are really important. And there's a lot of those right now. And so from the apps that you can have on your device to help monitor your sleep and monitor your health, to ways that you can track what you're eating, if you choose to do that right now. We have a rule in our house. My husband, who's an incredible chef and baker, can only bake 1 dessert a day. That is our rule.
I heard he was going a little bit crazy at the beginning of quarantine time.
I am blessed and grateful, and very full. But there are apps that can do all of those things. There are great apps that can give you those reminders, and you can do this. Part of the way I'm not giving too many specifics is because it depends on, if you tend to be I'm a Mac girl, I'm an Apple girl, married to a non-Apple guy. And so depending on your platform, there's different apps for different things. But there's lots of ways that you can also set reminders for yourself. One of the things that I do when I present on self-care is I offer a follow-up option. I encourage people to create a SMART goal. And so choosing something that is actually measurable that they're going to do, and then holding them accountable so for the people that I've presented with in the past, I actually do follow-up emails and calls to say, hey, how's that going? And just check in with them, because being accountable for some of these things can help. And so whether that's on your phone, having a reminder that comes up, once a day, I actually have it in my Todoist app, once a day to be grateful, and once a day to pause and breathe. And those are regular reminders that I get, just like I get with any other piece of my schedule. And there's also great, calm apps and meditation apps that are out there. I'm also a fan of books. If you have children, young children, especially at home, this is one of my favorites, Breathe Like a Bear. We'll see if we can get the author there too.
Nice.
Yeah. This is where the hot chocolate breath came from, that I love. So this is by Kira Wiley. And has some really fun, different type of breathing patterns and meditation patterns to connect with kids who might be struggling right now. Yoga Calm is another resource that was developed by a yoga teacher and a social worker in the schools that is specifically designed for kids. There's also a lot of great apps out there. Oh, goodness. On all of these different levels. Music stuff, there's tons right now. If you haven't seen all the free music out there, there's a bunch. The Google Chrome Music Lab is a favorite of mine to explore and play around with if you like to create music and explore that with your kids, or even as an adult. There are so many resources. I would just encourage you to use the power of the Google and to do some searching. And also, I'll just invite you to reach out. If there's a specific something that you're looking for that you haven't found that you think would be helpful, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm glad to share the resources that I've found helpful for with you too.
All right. On that note, what is the best way to reach out to you if someone wants to find out more, ask some questions, just learn more about you? Where should they go?
All right. So my website is www.joyfulnoisesllc.com. And that has not only information about me, some free slides and handouts from presentations that I've done. It also has the links to publications I've written, and it has a contact form. And so you can contact me directly through the website. I'm also on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My professional accounts are under Joyful Noises LLC. And then Jennifer Hicks. My personal accounts for many things are under Jen R. Hicks, Hicks. So feel free to reach out to me. Last one I'll give you is the email address. If you'd like to directly email me, is jhicks@joyfulnoisesllc.com. And I'm always glad to connect and share ideas and share resources and learn too. It's part of why I love doing this, is because I'm always learning new ideas and things that people find helpful, and adding those to my tips and tricks as well.
All right. Well, I got one final question. This has been really good so far. So thanks for taking the time to do this. My last question is, it's a Friday afternoon. Lots of people are getting ready for a weekend. And honestly, I know weekends nowadays feel less different than weekdays for many people, but they are a little bit different. But what are some, I don't know, a couple of quick 2 or 3 tips that people can implement this weekend to help take care of themselves a little bit better?
Absolutely. The first one I'll mention is, just like routines are important on weekdays, they're important on weekends too. And that doesn't mean they have to be the same routine as the weekday, right? And so if you're a family that had a certain Saturday morning routine before COVID-19, making sure that you're still translating that into what that looks like now. and incorporating that so it still feels like a Saturday. I really believe that rituals are important in our lives. And that's something that I've integrated in a lot of different ways. I have rituals that I do before I work with clients. Those can be as simple as a mantra or a prayer. It can be something you do physically, but building little bits of routine and ritual into your days. And so maybe starting Saturday morning with pancakes, or a special breakfast that's different than what you'd have on the weekday. Or maybe we can tell at our house when it is Saturday morning because we have the Pioneer Woman on TV. That is one of the top ways that you can tell. Whereas in the weekdays, we'll usually turn on our morning news that we listen to in the morning when we're getting ready. On weekends, that's where we go. And so that's how you can tell it's Saturday at our house. Finding those little rituals that you can still keep in place, even though you might be home every day right now, making it feel like a Saturday. And then I am a music therapist. And so I will just say, make a playlist for this weekend, whatever you need, wherever you're at, whatever mood you need for this weekend, have a little fun in the music together. Create some for yourself, create some for your family, maybe. Have a little fun, get out the pots and pans and even make some together. I just shared on Facebook earlier today, there was a great video that Jimmy Fallon and the Roots and Sting did together with You Don't Stand So Close to Me. And they did it with found objects. So Questlove was playing the scissors at one point. You mentioned fun earlier, and fun is still important. It's still important. And that power of and is something that has really been vital in my life, of being able to know that we can acknowledge that this is a really hard time in our lives. And it's hard for all the people that we're around. And we can still choose to create opportunities to draw closer together and to have fun and to be grateful for what we can learn throughout this time together as well.
Yeah, a couple things on that. The Jimmy Fallon, I have actually, so I don't know if anybody's watching. I've seen some of the clips on YouTube and a little bit. They've taken the Tonight Show and they do it from what appears to be Jimmy's living room or his bedroom or something. And his guests are at their houses. And it feels like this call that we're having right here, except it's with celebrities who are famous. And I don't know. I'm curious if they're going to continue doing this once coronavirus is done. Probably not every night, but it brings you into Jimmy Fallon's like house and life.
Yeah.
And his kid climbs on top of his face in the middle of the show, and it's live. You got to go with it. And yeah, so there was one other comment I was going to bring up about that. Oh, the Pioneer Woman. You watch her. This has nothing to do with self-care now. Did you hear that her she's quarantined like at her house, like most of us are, so they didn't send out a film crew. So her children filmed the show. And I don't know if that's the one that's airing this weekend. Like, I don't know if they're turning around quick, but they don't have professional photographers filming the Pioneer Woman's daily cook or weekly cooking show. Her children, and I don't know if they filmed. I don't know if they have professional cameras at her house or not, or if it's just all shot on some iPhones. I don't know, but it might be an interesting one to watch. It might not be cinematically the greatest one Food Network TV has ever put together, but it might be fun just for that portion as well. Yeah,
I love it. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's some people out there. Oh, we did get a couple of comments. Your husband a while ago commented that he can attest that you're good at catching spiders and moving the spiders.
He can. I just relocated one yesterday. So
good with that. But
these are my hidden skills.
He also says Jimmy Kimmel's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
As far as those late night shows, but they're fun anyhow.
And I would just point out, notice how much we love seeing that they're human, right? And so a big piece of self-care is that self-compassion of giving ourselves the grace to be human too. None of us are going to be perfect at this. And so, and so I think it is just incredibly important to be kind to yourself. And when your kid is climbing all over your face, or when your dog is running through, and I've loved all the, the tweets and the posts that people have done with their coworkers, using coworker in place of their child or their pet. This is happening to everybody right now. My neurologist is one of the smartest people I know. And I was on a telemedicine call with them and they were apologizing for something. And I had to laugh because it's like, okay, we're all in this together. We're all trying to just do the best that we can. And so really give yourself that grace this weekend to just be in the moment with the people that you're with, to connect with the people that you're not with, and to be compassionate with yourself and with others, that everybody is doing the best they can right now.
That is really true. And it's all these video calls and stuff that people are doing. We are much more forgiving about the dog barking in the background or the kid crying than we were 2 months ago. I think it's a good thing because we all really have lives outside of our work. And I think right now there's a lot of overlap between our family lives and our work lives. And I think that's a good thing. Anyhow, that's all the time I'm going to take for you today. So thanks a lot, Jennifer, for taking the time to chat with me. And we went way over the 30 minutes, but I think there was good information in here and I had a good time. And it appears some other people had a good time as well, too. So thank you very much and have a great afternoon. And I believe, like you mentioned, later today, we have a family Zoom call.
We do. We'll get the critique on this interview at 4:00. So.
We probably will.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you, everybody. And please take care.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching.